Hello and welcome back to Lore Cubed. I am Blue Blob Zero and you're watching the second episode of this adventure. Last time we went over just the basic of the world and how this video series is going to work. And today we will look at some creatures. This is actually going to be a post-commentary because some of the lore wasn't necessarily as appealing in when I was doing it as it was going along. So hopefully this will be a bit better doing it now. So, and then what's going to happen is going to be 3 to 4 creatures. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to commentate it as I go along so I know about the right about length, and then I'll record post if that commentary isn't necessarily as gripping. And so it might necessarily be that the videos are sped up a bit, where I'm talking for less time than I did in those videos, and we'll just see how it generally goes. So we've got our first animal. This is the horse. So these animals are actually new to the lands, and they started arriving in the lands about 5 years pre-turning, and around then they were solitary creatures. They didn't really seem to group up, and they didn't really have any contact with humans. However, after the turning happened, they've started to group up now. It might just be to defense, or maybe something's actually triggered that, something that arose up out of the turning. And they tend to be groups about between 5 and 10. This one that we've got in game here, just on another subject, is actually on its own, but normally they're in packs of 5 to 10. Anyway, back to what the lore book states. So, after the turning and when they started to group up, they actually started to interact with the races for the first time. But this was not in a nice nature. They've actually been raiding houses and generally just being greedy, taking as much food as they can, and raiding camps around the land that people have made, and sometimes they will even raid houses. However, people have started to tame them and use them as transport, to transport themselves, and they've actually managed to get great speed across the land by taming these and riding them. Now, as you can see, we've moved on to fighting a red squirrel here. Now, this squirrel is the latest known creature to transform in size. So like I said, quite a lot of the creatures, or at least a few of the creatures, have been changing in size. And the squirrel was originally the size of a human's fist, when including their tail and everything. However, at that time, they were still very vicious. They would attack lone travellers if they thought there was any food to be had. They generally didn't stop because their size was small, and they were very vicious. They would run up people, and they generally wouldn't be able to stop. They'd use their size to their advantage. However, they've become slightly more docile recently, and they now only attack people who go into their territory. And this is probably due to their size increase, and the reason why they've increased in size. So, as you can see around the land, these are about the size of a person. And the reason is most likely some sort of food that they get, but it's really unknown why and how they've managed to get to this size. And the only thing that people are hoping is that the creatures don't actually get any larger, because otherwise they're pretty stuffed. They could destroy us all because they're rather vicious. Okay, so over in the corner here, we've actually got some alpacas. So these creatures are quite interesting. They haven't recently appeared. They've actually been in lore and written down on ruins since the oldest records that we have, and the oldest ruins draw them. However, one interesting thing is that they've been drawn in different sizes all around history. Now, until recently, these size changes was thought to only be a myth. Maybe they were just drawing it big because they thought it was a god, these alpacas. However, in the time of the turning, in the year 0 after turning, all the alpacas in the land at the same time, overnight, shrunk to 50% of their original size. No one knows why or how, but they just did. So what you see now, they are 50% smaller than they used to be. They just all shrunk. And that's pretty much about it on their changes. They do tend to travel in groups, normally an even number of brown alpacas to orange alpacas, depending on where in the world they are and how they are placed in the world. They're quite timid creatures. They won't tend to attack people, and they just kind of generally are there. They're not really anything of note. The only thing that they are noticed for is the fact that they have been in history and recorded in history for such a long time, and it's quite significant to note that they've actually just been in history all around this time, which is quite an interesting fact, really. So here we have some onionlings. Now these are interesting creatures. At first you might think they're quite cute. They bash you with their hair. They do a little bit of a headbutt. They don't particularly look particularly threatening, but that is where you could be wrong. They will only make you cry. Now, onionlings have a tendency to knock with their head like they're doing with attacking people. And they on people's doors, and they might have a little tear, and people let them in because they feel sorry for them. They think they're a little cute creature, but once one of them gets into your house will be infested and you won't be able to get rid of them. They will get into your house, they will spread around, they will eat anything that they can in their house. They'll strip your house totally out, try and get you out of the house. There'll be so many in them that you won't actually be able to move in the house, and so you'll have to leave. And then once they've eaten everything in the house that they can, they'll just leave it abandoned. The house will almost likely fall down after they leave because they're holding it up with their bodies. So be wary. A whole swarm of onionlings is very dangerous, not just to you, but also your property and your finances. So just be careful around these creatures. They're more dangerous than they look. Okay, so that's 4 creatures, and I think that's a good amount for a video. We've got 7 minutes at the minute, about 7 minutes the minute of video, and I think that's a good number. However, as you can see, there's plenty more creatures for me to cover within Cubewell, so I'll be doing about 3 to 4 creatures a video. Some creatures, obviously, if I find like a lich or something, that's going to have more lore in it, and some creatures are just going to have quick bits of lore bit, and maybe I can do like 5 videos of get 2 creatures that will have the same kind of lore about them, and maybe lore be combined. We'll just see how it generally goes. So that's it for today. If you have any suggestions for any particular creatures you want to see, and any suggestions on the lore on particular creatures, although I'm making this up, if anyone has any suggestions that go along with the world, feel free to give them, and I might be able to include them in some way in my videos, and hopefully I can make this a community interaction. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!